All right, everyone, are you ready to get started? Before we actually jump in, I do want to remind everyone that is here that we will be recording this session, and so you will have the playback, so you'll be able to watch it, but just please know that we are recording it right now. So let's just jump in and get started. My name is Sylvia Seabolt, and I'm your first vice president, and I am serving on the national leadership team right along with Chris Lee. And Chris, do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'm Chris Lee, our 2020 national president this year, and happy to be serving with Sylvia as well. And I just wanted to say real quickly that we've all been in your shoes. Sylvia and I have both been local and state presidents. So we understand the challenges of all the balls you're juggling and what you're trying to keep up with, and we're here to help. And that's actually the point of this webinar. So we did this webinar a couple of years ago, and we're presenting again to reinforce the idea of being a kind of a leadership in a box, leadership identification and development committee in a box kind of training. And as Sylvia said, we are recording this. So the idea with that being that you can watch us later with your committee if you don't have them involved today, or do a watch party online with them and then kind of go over everything, what you've done well, what you haven't done well, things you can do to improve, and maybe even start to delegate some of those roles, the pieces of it to get done. So remember, just a quick reminder too, this is a committee and not a project team. So this is a committee that will meet and actually perform all year long versus just a short, quick project. If you have any questions as we go along here today on our webinar, just go ahead and type them in the chat box, and then we will address those at the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, Joanne Poole, a great industry leader that got her start with Women's Council, says, volunteer leaders dedicate much time, talent, and energy to their profession. The council helped build my confidence, leading to success in leadership roles in my career. The camaraderie, Chris, you know, I'm like all tongue-tied today, sorry. Watching other leaders and mentoring all played a role. The skills you learn and develop in Women's Council will play an important role in not only real estate or a member's real estate career, but it has the ability to help in all areas of their life. Our goal today is for you to understand the idea of leadership identification and development. The concept of leadership is not something that is set in stone because it changes based on the needs of the people being led. Therefore, the Leadership Identification and Development Committee will be constantly evolving.
Okay, so why leadership? As we know, leadership development is expressed in our mission. It's really baked into a lot of the core principles and values that we have as a council, but specifically start off, it's right there in our mission. We're a successful network of realtors advancing women as professionals and leaders in business, the industries, and the communities we serve. And then it's more specifically expressed in one of the 8 points of our vision. We identify, support, and promote strong leaders in business, the council, the industry, and the broader community. It's also one of the 7 pillars of our core values. Every business, industry, and community must have leaders who can see change that is needed, organize resources, and engage the hearts and minds of those around them. Through the Women's Council of Realtors, members develop and apply newfound leadership skills and qualities across all areas of their personal and professional lives. We have been identifying and growing industry leaders for years now and are really gaining traction in the field of where other groups have maybe not had so much success. So now here we are, and we're taking it to the next level. We're expanding our leadership identification and development program to really look at our capabilities within the organization and even maybe in the bigger picture within the industry. This is actually a really exciting concept and an opportunity for us.
Women's Council is leadership. We have coined the hashtag Leaders Made Here because that's who we are and that's what we do. Leaders are made here. And because of this, we have the Leadership Identification and Development Committee so that we can continue to identify, develop, and position qualified leaders at all levels of the organization. So that's the why. Let's jump right into the rest of it. Whose responsibility is the committee? The state leadership team will appoint the committee. We will get into the composition of the committee in a minute, but let's think about it mainly as being made up largely of past leaders. If you are a state without a state network, then this would be the role of the governor. Or if you do not have a governor, then it would be the responsibility of the regional vice president. Note that when you're appointing this committee, make sure you appoint members that you know and you trust their leadership. It is also important that the appointees are not the ones wanting help with their leadership journey. For example, a local president that is wanting to move up to be a state president, or a state officer wanting help to move up to the national level may not be the best appointee for this group. It's a little difficult to develop yourself. The composition. At a minimum, you need 5 committee members, plus anyone that is currently serving at the national level. That could be someone on the National Executive Committee, regional vice presidents that are from your home state. For example, let's use Chris Lee. Chris serves on the national leadership team. Idaho would have a minimum of 5 members plus Chris. The importance of having Chris or someone at the national level is that they have a national perspective. They know what leaders are needed, and they know where national is headed. So let's talk about the criteria for the appointees. There's a plethora of options in regards to the criteria needed for service on the Leadership Identification and Development Committee. The point of having people there that are involved is in not only the real estate business, but also in leadership avenues, is to understand the larger picture of leadership skills needed. Members of this committee need to be engaged in the industry as a whole, as well as having a clear understanding where Women's Council is headed. More or less, the committee is the boots on the ground for your state or region. The 3 general members should satisfy one or more of the following criteria, such as they've attended state or national industry conference, they've served in a leadership management role at their organization, or any of the others listed above. Don't forget, the Leadership Identification and Development Committee members are appointed by the state leadership team based on the criteria provided. Number of committee members can be scaled up based on the size of the state. Remember, these are minimum standards. Consider instituting term limits for the committee so there is new representation. And it's also important that the appointees are not ones wanting help with their leadership journey.
Okay, so that was the why and the who. Let's get into the what. We've talked about the importance of leadership development, a bit about our history of developing leaders and what the outcomes have been so far. Sylvia had just laid out in more detail the actual structure of the committee in your state. Now that you have a committee made up, what is the role of that committee? It's not important whether or not you've personally been in this role before or not, or how long you've been in the council. If you've participated in this program perhaps more than 3 years ago, you know that under the previous program, we've tackled the identification piece as far as identifying and submitting individuals to the national level to be further developed and utilized there. What we've not more formally done is identify and develop people for the roles at the state level. Essentially, we previously focused on developing leaders that have already stepped into a leadership role. And now we're looking to take it a step further and develop our members into leadership roles. So this part is new and where we're focusing on the growing the leadership program and really where the state network's role grows and comes into play. So let's break down what the committee goals are and look at it in these 3 components. First off, communication. This isn't just us speaking to you like we are today, but it's a 2-way communication. And you'll probably notice that you're just right in the middle of this communication chain. And this is a big part of why we restructure the regions actually and the job descriptions for the national and state liaisons. The communication will include the criteria and/or needs from the national to the state LID and from local network leaders to your state LID. Either what the local networks in your state need to identify and develop their leaders and national pipelines, so you're helping them, or identifying individuals in the networks who could assist your state in the future and fill your own pipelines. Also, your committee needs to feel comfortable communicating back to national. Tell us what national can do for you, and further, what tools you need. In that role, your committee chair will work with your state president for sending applications back to national leadership for identification of volunteers and opportunities at the national level. You are the talent scouts for your state. That's what this committee does. There are essentially two tracks or leadership pipelines for you to fill. For your state positions, you're looking for people that maybe you've already identified and yet need to be further developed in some capacity to fill your state leadership pipeline. And you're also looking to identify people for national opportunities. This involves identifying and recruiting members in your state, which will require them to submit their volunteer interest to your committee through the process that we have. Your state committee in turn will make recommendations to national based on your committee's review of those submissions. And Sylvia will review the actual submission process coming up. Development is the committee's main role for continued success of the council at all levels. This is developing those that have been identified through this process as up and coming leaders at the local or the state level. Those names that have been submitted by your state committee to national should be encouraged to continue to attend and engage at mid-year and national conferences. If they have a skill set need, your committee is the point to get them pointed in the right direction. For example, if they decide they want to learn more about public speaking or presenting, if you have members who have expressed that interest, public speaking, that sort of thing, your committee might put into a class at the state level about public speaking or presenting. And you could do this at a state meeting or at an online conference that you're doing now. And actually right now is the perfect opportunity while you're doing all these virtual events online that you have a little bit more flexibility to do this type of programming. So why not have a deliverable from your state about leadership development? Some things you might want to consider if you're doing this. How do you provide feedback to your volunteers on their performance? Perhaps the committees they've served on in the past, how did they do? Do you give recommendations as to what their next steps might be in their own leadership journey? Do you encourage your members to get out of their comfort zones, to enhance their skill sets in some other way? Do your members even know all of the opportunities available to them to be involved and what the benefit is to them? And then while you're having to look at all this and putting together a development program for your state, think about what skills or qualifications are you actually looking for to develop. So effective is the word here in effective leadership. We're looking at the strength of the team. We all know that sometimes it's easier to do a task on our own rather than to delegate to a team, but that's a really important promise and delivery item of our leadership development opportunities, both for the team and for the person delegating the task to let it go. I know I can tell you that I often look at things and think, wow, it's just going to be easier and faster if I just do this myself. And it was very difficult for me to learn to put together that team, that project team, and give other people that opportunity to try to pull a project together and to do it themselves. And that's their opportunity to shine and grow. And sometimes the hard part for me to learn was sometimes we have to let them fail and just be ready to come up so the project doesn't fail and come behind them and make sure it's a success. But that's part of the growing process too, is sometimes we have to let people fail. And that's a really hard lesson for me to learn anyway. So we're talking about opportunities in the council. Let's have a quick look again at what some of these opportunities might be. So at the local level, remember, we didn't all just start out as president-elect, right? I mean, hopefully we didn't. Sometimes we know that happens, but that's the goal, to not start as a new member and a president-elect. So at new members, hopefully they've been to a meeting or two, they've joined the local network, they've been to an event, and hopefully somebody asked you when you started to get involved just a little bit. And this is your committee's job at the state level to encourage your local networks to be doing this. what might you do to invite someone to participate? And remembering that the more they give, the more they get. You don't just pay your dues and the referrals flow in, right? We all know that's the case. You've got to give some to get some and have some skin in the game. And we all know there are many smaller roles that are actually essential to the group running well. So staying organized, maximizing the output, and keeping everyone sane, let's be honest. So these are just a few examples at the local level of opportunities where someone might be able to just take a small bite and dip their toe in the water of Women's Council. At the state level, there are opportunities outside of the elected leadership that perhaps those that have become involved and want to be more involved can take the opportunity to do so. Many of these are the same as at the local level. However, this does allow the opportunity for those to network with their peers from across the state, which, as we know, also does increase their personal visibility and then, of course, their referral potential as well. And as well as benefits to the state network by grooming for future leadership opportunities at a higher level, which is why you're all here today, right? So again, these activities help grow your leadership skills and professionalism, which also directly translates into our own businesses. So that's an additional selling point for you and your committee members as you're doing your talent scouting. And then what about beyond the state? Have you traveled to conferences? What have you seen people doing as volunteers when you're there? Some of these opportunities are sent out as calls to action by the membership looking for volunteers, and some are still appointed to these positions by the national leadership team. And in order to be on that list to be considered for those appointments, your name and that completed form through this process has to be forwarded to national by your Leadership Identification and Development Committee. So these are your meeting ambassadors, living your inspirations. We even have some new virtual opportunities that we've added this year. And then additional roles appointed might be Finance and Budget Committee, the Leadership Institute, and even really important committee liaisons to NAR committees.
Leadership identification to promote within the organization is one of the biggest responsibilities of the Leadership Identification and Development Committee. We've had a version of this process for many, many years, but let's go over the process in place today. Okay, step one is the application process. National will send the state presidents, or if you are a governor where there is not a state network present, they will send you, the governor, the link where the applicants can apply online. As a committee, the Leadership Identification and Development Committee, you'll need to communicate this to your state or region. And this can be done by a newsletter, an e-blast, Facebook page, however you wanted. The options are endless, and it's just about promoting the application process and the application link. Everyone should expect to receive those links by Friday afternoon this week. And then you will fill out the applications, the ones wanting to apply. Applications will be self-submitted using an online jot form. So let's pretend that Chris Lee is filling out the form for herself. She would fill in all her information and include such skills as being an amazing bookkeeper or a love of numbers. Chris would have the opportunity to print her own application before she submitted. Okay, and then next slide, Chris. Step two is the actual recommendation process. After Chris had submitted her application, then on or about May 20th, all the applications will be emailed to the state president or a governor if there is not a state network there. They will then need to forward the applications to the LID committee chair so that they can schedule a committee meeting to review the applications. And we will do a timeline in a little bit, so it makes it all clear process for you. This meeting to review the applications right now would most likely need to be done via Zoom or some other platform, but you could do it as a conference call, a Google Hangout, Zoom. The options are pretty much unlimited in the time we are right now. The chair would need to provide copies of the applications for the committees to review. So they would be able to print the applications that are sent from national and email them, and actually deliver them, or they could email all the PDFs out. Once the committee reviews the applications and decides on who to submit, the state president, or again, a governor where there's not a state network, would submit via the online process. They will have a private link that is provided by National to submit all their names. So if I was in charge of submitting Chris's name to National, I would recommend her by filling out a form with my contact information, Chris's contact information, an actual recommendation for that. And I can't stress enough that the recommendation is so important. So if you know that Chris was the best treasurer that your state had ever had, she took a mess, she cleaned it all up, whatever it is, put in all those details in the recommendation, because we might not know that actually Chris would be a great person for finance and budget, and here is the why. So give us some rationale of why you think they would be great for finance and budget committee. And then you will sign it online and submit. And you also have the option to print it so you can retain it for your records. This report, and this is new, must be submitted to National by June 1st. June 1st is a new date, so I want to draw attention to that. But note there is actually a step 2.5 in our 3-step process. And the step 2.5 is contact Chris or whoever the names that applied, and let them know what you did with their name. Let them know that you submitted their name to National. You don't know what's going to happen with that, but they were submitted as one of your allotment to National. Or maybe you submitted their name to your state nominating committee because you feel that they really should be interviewing and moving up in your state. So give them some feedback on what the committee decided to do with their application. All right, and I mentioned the allotted numbers that you're allowed to submit. The number of recommendations you can submit is dependent on the size of your state. Let me make a point out, you do not need to resubmit any recommendation for anyone that has on the National Executive Committee or has been within the past couple of years, or also Leadership Institute class. Now, at any time, these individuals that are on National Executive or have recently been on National Executive or in our Leadership Institute program or just graduated, they can update their resume anytime. They are already on our radar at National, but please don't use them as one of your recommendations. This allows more recommendations for other people. Again, this report must be received to National, but no later than June 1st. And the National leadership team begins making reviews and appointments in June. And that is the third and final step of the process. So let's do the timeline I talked about. All right, so first of all, we have the state appoints the Leadership Identification and Development Committee. If you have not already done that, that needs to be done immediately. And I'm going to go with it. Everyone has already done that. And we're just learning our job as the Leadership Identification and Development Committee. So by Friday, you will receive, the state president or governor will receive the link and the instructions and this video actually from National by Friday afternoon for the directions. And then between Friday and on or about a little bit before May 20th, that is when we are receiving applications at National. They will all go to National. National will sort them, and then on or around May 20th, National will send the state presidents or governors where there's not a state network their batch of applications. That batch of applications needs to be sent to the committee, and the committee has between May 20th-ish, difficult to say, and May 31st to choose what names they're going to be submitting to National. And by June 1st, then the state president or the governor needs to make those recommendations to National, and then also make recommendations to the state and local networks to help develop them. I have personally chaired the State Leadership Identification and Development Committee, and some of the applications we got were even just a strategic partner saying, hey, I want to give money, and that information got given back to the state. Or they were brand new members and they didn't know how to get engaged. They had just gotten the email blast. And so then we sent them back to their local network to get engaged there. So you will have some of those potentially, depending how far and wide you solicit applications from people in your state. All right, Chris.
Okay, so Sylvia and I have pulled together some tools from the website, and these are not new. They should be familiar to you already, at least the bulk of them. But so we're not reinventing the wheel here, and there's a lot of information on the website, as you know, and it's been gone through and picked through, and a lot of the old stuff has been removed and new stuff updated. So do keep in touch with the website. It's constantly evolving. And we're really just repurposing what we already have to dig one level deeper into the leadership identification process. On our website, one tool is actually found in the first year communication strategy. This one right here, we pulled straight from the new member interview template. You'll notice all we've done is strip out the word new and call it a member interview template. See how clever we are? We actually workshopped this a bit in the Local Network 360 a couple of years ago. And in the exercise, we emphasized that this is not a homework assignment for the person that you are interviewing. You don't email this to them and say, have it back to me by Tuesday. This form is for you, and in this case, your entire leadership identification committee, to use as an outline while you're talking to your members, just casually or at events within the state, and specifically, since you're at the state level, while you're talking to your local network leaders. As we know, it's always important to have your finger on the pulse of your membership. And in this case, it's with an eye toward their individual leadership journey. So this conversation is with people that perhaps you've identified in your local networks that you're looking to move up to the state level, or perhaps your local network has come to you with people that they have raised their hand showing interest in moving up the organization at the local level. You can walk your local leaders through this process for their benefit and use as well. And then hopefully everyone in leadership in your state will eventually be familiar with this tool. It's got a lot of power with it. If you have a local network that is really on the ball, they may even already have this template filled out with some of your members' information from when they joined. In speaking with your local network leaders, have them send these to you for a little background information on the people that you're looking to groom. And when you're speaking with that member, just in casual conversation, you can ask them if their goals are the same from when they joined or if perhaps they've changed, because as we know, over time that does happen. And by the way, at this point, I would point out these are ladies and gentlemen that have already renewed their memberships. So you can ask them, and this is the perfect opportunity to do so, are they finding what they're looking for and what they need from the council to get them where they want to be with regard to their business goals? Is there a way that their local network can help them further, or perhaps at the state level? And importantly, is the reason they renewed the same reason as the reason they joined? Because often that answer may have changed once they've had the experience of the council. Have your local networks do a member engagement interview. Be in close communication with your networks about this. Again, this is a one-on-one phone call or a face-to-face conversation later in the year, and right now a Zoom call perhaps, and not a homework assignment for the person that you're looking to move up into leadership. The Pathways to Leadership brochure that we have on the website is another tool that's been out there for many years. And it's a communication tool. Perhaps you could use this and include it in your state network newsletter if you're sending that out, or in any meetings if you want to have them out, or emailed out to folks, or physically present, or just to have handy when people are asking you what the opportunities are at the local and the state levels for volunteer roles. And the roles here that are listed are ones we broke out earlier in the slides that identify the tasks and roles at the local, state, and the national levels that members have the opportunity to fill. And finally, we have a screenshot of a feedback form for a speaker. This is a great tool to evaluate incoming local presidents to ready them for their post in their network. It's also a super effective tool at the state level. And I know this is already being done in Texas, so some of you are familiar with it. But for the rest of you, I would encourage you to make a suggestion to implement this in your states, both at the local and the state levels. So for example, give your incoming leaders the opportunity to improve their speaking and presenting skills. Have them give a speech in front of your committee, and your committee's job is to evaluate and give feedback. This can even be an assigned topic if you choose. If done at a state meeting, you might decide to open it to other members even that express interest in participating. So this could be valuable to the state as it allows the committee to find potential state leaders or maybe even speakers and trainers. For example, say one of your members has expressed an interest in becoming a speaker or teach CE. This is not an experience that's easy for them to find a venue elsewhere that's a trust and safe environment where people are actually genuinely looking to help them grow and they have an interest in that. So this might be of huge value to the member to have this opportunity. We are looking constantly to improve this leadership identification and development process. It's evolving, as the Women's Council of Realtors always is. And we've given you some ideas here and resources to assist your committee, but we'd also like to hear back from you as to where you could use more assistance. Or if you have an idea that's worked well in your state, share it with us. We'd love to share with everybody. If 2 months from now you have a new idea of what might work well or something you saw somewhere else, send us an email, share it with us. In the past, we've really focused on the identification piece of this and not really dug more deeply into the development side of leadership training on a state and a local level. So this is the part that's new and really exciting here. And this is potentially game-changing here for the whole Women's Council of Realtors. If you have questions now or need clarification of anything, type that in the chat box and we will address that at the end. And if you think of something again later, after you see this, or if you're watching the recording, again, shoot us an email and we will get back to you on that.
Okay, Chris, we have a couple questions that we want to go ahead and answer before we finalize this whole presentation. And they're in the chat box, everyone can see, but if you're watching this after the fact, I want to go ahead and address them to everyone so that everyone is on the same page. When do you determine the size of the states? The size of the states and the number of applications they can submit is determined on 12/31. So for applications that can be submitted for 2020, the number of applicants was determined on your membership based on 12/31 of 2019. Let's see, next question. I've already sent out an email on LID to all the state members. Is it a new link different from the one that's on the website? It is not a new link. I can tell you that, in fact, we have about, I believe, talked to Jeff yesterday, there's about 12 people that have already submitted applications. The link is actually there year round. This is our call for applications, so you can keep submitting that. What you will receive is also that link on Friday, but you'll also receive the detailed instructions of how to do this task, as well as the copy of this webinar. Let's see. Will the LID chair receive a copy of the applications? The LID chair will not directly receive a copy of the applications. The application, the packet of applications will be submitted to the state president if there's a state network, or the governor if there is not a state network. And the state president also will be copied on that, just so you know, because we like for them to both be on the same page. And then they will need to submit it to the LID chair, or Leadership Identification Development Chair. Our leadership committee already asked for applicants and has closed the application process. Should I tell them to have them to open it back up? My suggestion would be yes, you have more time. So if you can get more applications, then that's great. And I can tell you nationwide, there's only been about 12 applications received. So it would probably behoove you to open it up and solicit more applications, because it's just going to bring more talent to the talent pool for your state. Are the requirements to be on this committee, like being a past local president? Let's see. Chris, can you flip our slides back to slide 8? Okay, remember, this is the minimum standards for your committee. 2 active past state presidents, and then 3 people from your general membership, plus anyone serving at a national level. And so for those general members, Crystal, you flip to slide 9. Sorry, 10. And this is suggested criteria, that they're an active member at local or state level. They've attended state or national industry conferences recently. They've served as a director at the local, state, or national level. There's a plethora of options available, but we really want them to have 1 or 2 of these criteria to be serving on this committee. They need to be engaged with Women's Council to know what we're looking for in leaders, and also to be able to help develop them. But they also need to know about other leadership experiences and attending things such as our national meetings to actually know what we are looking for. If we just said Leadership Institute, if someone was not aware of Leadership Institute because they were not attending national meetings, they wouldn't know how to recommend for that. So I hope that answers that question. We already selected several members by recommendation of state and local leaders. I'm not sure if that's exactly a question, but I would open it up for more applications and then do the submission process. No one has submitted their recommendations to national because you don't even have the link to submit your recommendations to national from your Leadership Identification Development Committee. So you might have already selected a few people, but I would definitely open it up for more opportunity to get more talent in the talent pool.
And I might just add to that a moment, Sylvia. The link is open to everybody. You might find that you'll have people self-submit that you're not familiar with. And this is a really great opportunity to get to know that person and why they've joined and what it is they're looking for, and to reach out that way. You might also come across people that you feel are overshooting a bit what their ask is as far as what their skill set is and where they think they should be, which gives you as a state the opportunity to go back to their local network and say, hey, did you know this person wants to be a national speaker? Perhaps you can give them some opportunities locally to start to develop that. And so it's not only just filling the national and the state pipelines, but it gives you the opportunity to work with your local networks to develop their own talent locally as well.
Yes. We have a question, is the Pathway to Leadership brochure under network tools? And let me just tell you where all of these tools are. So if you go under wcr.org, Member Center, Volunteer Town Square, that is where you will find the link if you want to start submitting, like publicizing this link, like we're calling for applications today. The link is right there on that, as well as that brochure and other tools available. And we'll continue developing the Volunteer Town Square page. Again, that's under Member Center and then Volunteer Town Square. Let's see. Will this video be available to share? Absolutely. When we send to the state presidents and governors on Friday afternoon, the link for this video will be there, and this will also be uploaded to the YouTube channel for Women's Council, and I'm sure also on the website too. Just a reminder that the video and the content of this is actually really to help it's the state committees and the state leaders explaining their roles in the application process. The video is not necessarily going to help people wanting to apply, other than just explaining the application process to them. Okay. And it'll also be sent in the roadmap, the next edition of the roadmap for everyone that gets it. There is a suggestion that Georgia does, and they send applications to members that they have spotted some talent in, and they where did it go? And they will also assist them in filling out the application if they need any assistance there. So that might help other networks.
If a member, Sylvia, does not apply online, can they be recommended on June 1st? Or are they only allowed to submit names from the group of online applications self-submitted?
Well, can you still hear me? I think my headphones died. So they need to submit applications that we have names with. So the national leadership team reviews all of these applications. So we will see what the person self-submitted, their actual application, as well as what the state committee says about the person and where they would recommend them to go. And that's why both parts are so important. And so if we did not have their self-submitted application, we might not have any details that they're this nationally known speaker that we've never heard of or something of that sort. And we might just have one part. So it's very important to have both parts, the self-submitted and the state's recommendation. Can applicants be a strategic partner or an affiliate? We're looking for realtors to serve, but as I mentioned earlier, we have had strategic partners or affiliates that want to be a strategic partner, and we have turned that information over to the state or their local, as when I was chairing this committee in Texas, did turn that information over to the state president and the local president that they had someone that was looking to be a strategic partner. Remember, okay, we answered that one. Yes, so we have to have those names and the applications. It's so important to do the 1, 2, 3 process. Well, it's really just the 1, 2 process for the state committee. Number one, they have to self-apply. We have to know who they are and what their talents are, what they say their strengths are. And then 2, we do need the recommendation. So if we don't have both steps, we can't actually place them and give them the best appointment for them, because with my example of Chris, if she hadn't said like she loves bookkeeping and the state had not said that she was a great treasurer, we might not have ever slated her to be or appointed her to the finance and budget committee, because we would not have known those things about Chris had we not had both of those to put together. So both parts are so very important. And the biggest thing the Leadership Identification and Development Committee can be doing right now, today, and even heavier on come Friday, is to be soliciting for applications. And that, like I said, there's so many different options. You could have someone do a video about all the different possibilities available. You could promote the Pathways to Leadership brochure. And you could do that, on a Zoom, a little meetup. I know a lot of us are having virtual happy hours or virtual education sessions. And this would be a great thing, is to share the link and the things they could apply for, and how to actually promote yourself. We tend to not be very good at promoting ourselves and what our strengths are. So this is a great time to that the Leadership Identification and Development Committee can start helping develop leaders by helping them do the application. I would not do it for them, but to just give them some tips and tricks on doing that. Okay, again, let me just reiterate this one on you do not need to submit an application unless you want to update it. If you have been on the National Executive Committee or Leadership Institute, you are on our radar. We do encourage you, because you do new things every single year. We do encourage you to update your application, but your state does not need to put that on our radar. For example, Chris, kept using you, Chris, as an example, but Idaho does not need to count Chris as one of the applications. But if Chris wanted to update her profile, basically her application, she is welcome to do that at any point, but you don't need to take up one slot. We want to offer more opportunities for each state. And so if someone has risen to that level, we don't need them to resubmit. And the application deadline has already been extended. there was previously, and every other year, May 1st, and it's June 1st is our deadline now, because we do need to make appointments, and that starts in June, that we start actually making appointments from the national leadership team for the following year. If applicants would like assistance with their application, they should contact their Leadership Identification and Development Committee. They should be able to help them fill out the application. And let's see, in Georgia, the Leadership Identification and Development Chair sends a member a handwritten note congratulating them that they have been recognized as an up-and-coming leader, and we would like for them to fill out the application for their leadership identification. That is another way that you can get more participation, is by encouraging people that you're recognizing for their talents.
For sure.
California has sent out some emails with the link, and they're doing a meetup to help leaders who want to apply. And let's see, New Jersey has an ambassador from each network to make sure that their network is aware and will assist them in filling out the application. I think I caught all the questions there. If there's any more, feel free to jump in. And before we finish, is there anything else you wanted to address, Chris?
I think we hit the bulk of it there. And these slides and the whole video, of course, will be posted if you want to have a watch party with your committee. That might be a good idea. And then at that point, you can kind of set out a timeline in the time frame and a strategy for how you want to actually implement this in your state. Beyond what you've already done, it sounds like a lot of people have a great start on this already, actually.
Absolutely. Chris, can you jump us to slide 34? And we'll just finish up the presentation. And if there are any more questions, just feel free to type them and we will get them answered. Okay, so as a committee, your job is to be the talent scouts. As you know, by becoming involved at this local or state network level, members will discover the dividends that service to the council provides: the networking, professional development, and leadership development. Those that have the time, passion, and desire should consider getting involved at the state and national level. We just need to know who they are and their talents. There's a wide range of opportunities available. Our Leadership Identification and Development Program is designed to identify talent at the grassroots level to match the talent with opportunities at the state and national level. There are timelines for appointments to certain posts, so encourage those that are thinking about volunteering for 2021 to fill out their application now so that they can get involved. Thank you for your time today. And as a wrap up, a few last things for you to remember. You need to appoint a committee if that hasn't been done. Make sure the committee has a clear understanding of their role. Share this webinar with the committee and give us feedback on any tools that you might need to help you in this process, or if you have any great ideas that we can help implement for all the states, that if an idea comes out of your state. Make sure you have a clear understanding of how to have applications submitted, how they will come back to you, and the timeline. And if there's any other questions that need to be addressed, let me see. Okay, if people apply through this link for state and national, will you send it all back? Yes. So for example, let's use Chris again, why not? Chris submitted her application. One of the very first questions is, what state are you in? She would choose Idaho, and Idaho would get all 40 applications that submitted. If there were 40, they would get a copy of every single application. Now, Idaho does not get to submit 40 recommendations to national, but please know that even if Chris is not one of the ones that national was submitted to national, we still have a copy of that application too. So they could be picked up on our radar. It just, when the Leadership Identification and Development Committee submits their name forward with a recommendation, it's like adding a seal of approval to the application, because you have vetted them, you're working on them, and developing them as a leader.
I think that looks like...
Yeah, we have a couple of more questions. Yes, correct. All applications will be sent to a state president only sent to a governor if there is no state network present. So if you are in a state that has a state network, all line officers and a governor, and you're a governor, you will not receive a copy of these. They will go to the state president. But if there is no state network president, then it will go to a governor. Do we get notified as they submit or by a certain date? On or about May 20th, you will get all of the applications. And that is a new process because in the past you have gotten crazy emails all different times, and it's easier to batch it to the state president or the governor versus you getting emails at 2 a.m. and 6 p.m. and losing an application. So National will take on that and batching it all together. And I think that's all of our questions. We're always around if you need any assistance with this. And just remember, you are not only the council, you are identifying and developing the future of the council. Thank you for attending today.
Thank you all.